Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the international show of Everything in Moderation. And I have my lovely friend Luis here. What is happening
Fucking
today?
Peru.
And Peru! Viva la Peru! So, what are we talking about today?
Okay, today's more of a complicated, sticky topic, and it has to do with, I guess, labeling a culture. I guess in a way, Hispanics, Latino, Latinx, trying to find exactly which term should be used. Why do people use it? How did it come up? Everything and everything about it. That's what the topic is tonight.
So, let's first start off with where do you want to begin?
Well, I want to ask you the first question. Like,
Mhm.
have you heard of Latinx before? I know you've heard about Hispanic and Latino because it's always on those documents asking you about which race, ethnicity you're in. You've seen those terms. Latinx, I want to know your first idea, the first thing that comes into mind. What is it? What's it about? And do people use it?
I think when I first heard the term, it was when I first came to college, and I think when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it must be like I understood that like Spanish is a gendered language in the sense that like um
When you conjugate.
yeah, you end things with oh, like ellos, ellas. And I took Spanish since I don't know, like I did grammar school. So like I'm familiar. And when I saw Latinx, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe they're like trying to like do like gender equality between like male and female. But then I realized that it's not actually for that purpose. It's for um, people that use like gender neutral pronouns and non-binary pronouns.
So like an inclusion of the whole LGBTQ plus community, right?
Yeah, that's what its purpose actually is. When I first heard it, I thought it was just to include um, male and female on like the same level, like an equal level.
Okay, so its purpose is for inclusion, but other people are looking at it as like a label in order to replace like Hispanic and or Latino.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
Well,
Because now you're including ethnicity with gender, if that's the whole thing. You know what I mean?
hmm so I mean, the Latino Hispanic debate is always pretty interesting because the way that I see it is Hispanic is just Spanish speaking person, and then Latino could refer to anybody from a Latin American country, which includes English speaking countries like Belize. It includes Brazil, um, and yeah, like it. Latino is more of a
It's more of a
broader.
region, like
Yeah,
geographic
it's a
location.
territorial term.
Hmm.
It's like it's us saying that we're like American. Technically, a Mexican could say that too because they are included in North America. So you know,
Hmm. Yeah, that's something new that I didn't know the difference, to be honest. And when I started, I think you saw my post, my story on Instagram when I started asking the question. People started responding back. People who I know are Latino or Hispanic because I've spoken with them in Spanish and English or just spoken about our culture, and they didn't know the difference, to be honest, between Hispanic and Latino. They just thought it was an interchangeable term that we always use, and I that's what I thought too. But
Mhm.
Hispanic is actually from, again, España. It derives from that word, right? So from Spanish descent, and just Latin is just a geographical location. Then I started doing more research, and it's like people use it as a race as well to determine like how you look in your color. So then that came into the question: is it a race or ethnicity? And it got all confusing. And then when I started talking to the people, they also didn't know the difference. But they brought in Latinx, which is even more confusion now.
It's almost as if like, well, first of all, I've never met um any Hispanic person that said, "Oh, I'm Hispanic," or "Oh, I'm like Latino or Latina."
They
It's
just say, "Hey,
they,
I'm
they say
Peruvian."
they say their country of origin. They say, "Oh, I'm Peruvian. Oh, I'm Colombian. I'm Ecuadorian." Um, like I have an Ecuadorian girlfriend, like from Ecuador, and she literally just says, "Oh, I'm Ecuadorian." Like she acknowledges that she's Latina too, but that comes secondary.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I think that's part of just like cultural um aspects, which I think that's is what everyone usually does when they say that's what the country they're from. Like, my family is from Italy, so I would just say I'm Italian.
yeah.
And people who say they're from the United States would say I'm American. So to put that both together, my family's from my family, my Italian family born in America. They would say I'm Italian American. I just say I'm Italian, but also since my dad's side of the family is from Sicily, I can also say I'm Sicilian. But I usually don't really say that. But since my last name Maragliata is from Sicily, I like to say that my Maragliata is a Sicilian last name. But most of the time I just say I'm Italian. But there's
Mhm.
just thing that's like when you said before, Christian. I never really heard the Latinx term until I got to college.
Yeah.
But I only have one friend that's like from a Spanish descent. I'm not sure what um I forget what country she's her or origin she's from. So but yeah, I think she I'm not sure what she goes by though, but yeah, I remember like when I learned in Spanish class, we talked about we could use the vos otros and nos otros. And the vos otros is what you learn in Spain, and we use that in Spain, and nos otros is like every other country. So it's very confusing. But I still pass Spanish. I got a good grade in Spanish, so it's confusing.
Um, I think that when you said like the Sicilian American thing, that kind of almost is something that you would only say to someone who is also Italian, because like you could say that to me, Anthony, because like I understand what you mean. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because like no one really knows like what a Sicilian is, like if they're not really familiar. Um, but like I think that's like the same thing with um just other countries in general too, because like I said, like my girlfriend's from Ecuador and she's from Guayaquil, and like she's totally, her people are different than people from Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. So like it's funny because like I call like my girlfriend like Guayaca sometimes. It means like the girl from Guayaquil. So um it's different. Like you would call it's similar to like how Anthony said the Sicilian American thing. But like in overall, she would say she's Ecuadorian first.
But you know why I think it's different than just saying, "Oh, I'm Italian," or going like with Sicilian or being French or German. I
Mhm.
feel like it's just a lot more straightforward with those countries.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm German, I'm Italian. But when you say, "Hey, I'm Hispanic or Latino," you include a region. And then you even go further. You go like, "Oh, you're Latino," and then you start speaking in Spanish. And what if the other person doesn't know Spanish?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Then and then it goes with the conclusion, are you Latino though? If you don't know how to speak Spanish, that's a big controversial topic, and like everybody talks about it. Are you Latino enough or Hispanic enough? Trust me, I had to go through it, and I still do with my girlfriend. I
Hmm.
am never Latino enough.
That's kind of the same way I think it goes. Like when I talk to somebody and then I meet like another Italian person, they ask, "Oh, do you speak Italian?" I always say no, but I know some Italian words. Like I don't know how to speak fluent Italian. I think my grandparents, my dad's side, they knew how to speak fluent Italian since they were born in Italy. But I think it just goes. I think a little difference between what I was talking about before about the regions, because all the islands off of Italy, they're all part of Italy. They're all part of Italy, but I think the difference is that like, there's so many like Hispanic or Latino countries, and they're like they can just easily say that, oh yeah, I'm from this country, so they like Peru's country, so that's what people would say. They're Peruvian, or their family's from Brazil, so they'd say, oh, I'm Brazilian. Just like how any other country would be.
Hmm. That's like I was making that point earlier when I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and um it was like again like what I just said like 5 minutes ago. Like I've never heard someone say, "Oh, like I'm Hispanic." I mean, like I've heard it sometimes, but um not generally. Most of the times they'll say, "Oh, like where's your family from?" They wouldn't say Latin America. No, they would say, "Oh, whatever their country is from."
Chris, have you ever asked your girlfriend what she puts down in her documents? Because I've also heard like a lot of my friends that they tend to struggle with exactly which label to choose sometimes because they don't know if they choose white, or simply Latino, because sometimes they don't even include Latino or Hispanic and have to put white because
Yeah.
there's nothing else there. So have you ever asked her like how she, like what she labels herself at?
I believe that she puts down like Latino, Hispanic, or of Spanish speaking country
Okay.
in certain government documents, but I don't know about ones that don't necessarily include it because I do see that sometimes like where there's no I see like more recently I've seen like um it's like Spanish speaking white or something. Like that would be someone from Spain. That's like the first thing that comes to my head. But yeah, like now like you were getting into like the slippery scenario, like where does Spain come in all of this? Because Spanish people are totally different than someone from South America.
Definitely. I think it has to do
Especially
with
with
more
Vosotros.
historical
I know that
sense.
there's beef with that. That's funny. The Vosotros beef is hysterical.
I know.
Um,
I tried to use Vosotros once and my girlfriend corrected me, said never to use it.
so
But we were talking about this before we actually went live. We were talking about how your girlfriend and my girlfriend have something in common. They were not born in the States. They came to this country legally. Okay, let's put that on the internet. They came legally
oh,
and they haven't heard of this term in their country and their homeland. When they came here, they were still weren't aware until probably until they got into more of an academia setting, you
mm,
know, more. So it comes into question, is it being used? Is Latinx being used? Because remember, we had Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx. And Latinx is the controversial topic that we kind of want to focus on as well, right? Put a little bit more emphasis on.
yeah.
So Latinx, she's never heard of it, right?
I brought it up to her and she said Latinx is a term to refer to everybody that's Latin, right? So that would actually include anyone who speaks any Latin derived language too. So like technically I would be Latin.
Mm-hmm.
Which
That's one of the confusing parts too of a Latino, sometimes a Latinx. It's
mhm,
like just it includes everyone. French, Spanish, Portuguese, everything basically.
yeah. So she didn't exactly know what it was either.
Yeah. My girlfriend didn't know either. She heard it first from a show with Gabriel Iglesias. So but I have a grudge with Latinx. So we were talking about this. I forget if it was live or not. But you were talking that it's a gender neutral inclusion term, right? So it's supposed to include both male and female, but as well all these non-binary LGBTQ plus type of genders, right? Okay. So we're talking about a term because some people are using it as a label, right? To say, hey, to replace like Hispanic, Latina, right? Say ethnicity. So you're equating that ethnicity with a gender, and I feel like there's just too much confusion. Don't you
Mhm.
guys think that?
Um, I mean, I definitely think that it makes the most sense for you to use your country of origin because that'll get the most specific type of way of stating like where you're from. Because like there's like insider like jokes in between like the dialects of different Spanish speaking countries that like you know you know like a joke with Dominican people can't be used like with
Oh no.
Colombian people. It just doesn't, it's not the same. Like they won't necessarily understand it. But if I say this Dominican joke or insider like phrase to a Dominican person, they'll be like they'll laugh because they're like, oh, like he knows other Dominican people. But um I kind of got sidetracked there. What were you saying?
I
To me,
do agree with Christian on what he said. I think you just use your country of origin. I think it's easier. It gets to the point. I think easy if you just if you're born in the U.S. I think it's just easier if you say, "Oh yeah, I'm an American," or if you say you're born, like say you're born in Brazil, you say I'm Brazilian. I think it's just a lot easier to know what it is. Especially also think like me and Christian, we're both Italians. We're both born in America. We can both say we're both Italian. We're both American. It's then obviously if someone wants to follow citizenship, then you can say you're American. it depends on what nationality you're from, where you're born.
And also, I think what was I gonna say? Okay, I'm
I
gonna
just
hold
have a
that thought.
grudge with I just
I'm
have
gonna
a
hold that
grudge
thought.
with Latinx. I just I don't think so. It's supposed to be gender inclusion, right? But I don't think people use it as that. Because to be honest, I was doing a lot of research on it, and maybe 2 or 3 websites included that definition of it, but the majority just used like a gender neutral progressive term, so that way females are not, they don't feel left out.
Mm.
It seemed very, it seemed a little bit like propaganda, to be honest. Like they were trying to change, like how I tell everybody, they're trying to change the language. And from who I've met, people that use Latinx, they're very, 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 they feel very strong about it. They think that if you don't agree with it, you're empowering men. You know, there's just an instability between females and males in the Hispanic culture, and blah 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 blah. Honestly, it's language. To be honest, for me, it's just language. Latino is Latino, and it's when you're talking about a group, it becomes, it ends with a male conjugation, right? A masculine conjugation. And for me, I don't feel like it's empowering male or female. I think just it's just part of a language. I don't think, of anything other than that.
Well, in Spanish, there's some most there's the usually it ends in O. It's usually typically most of the time it's a male term. And usually if it's an A, it's usually goes for females. I think it comes down to like gender neutral terms. It's usually it happens not to end like no not end. I'd say it's usually like things like inanimate objects or things that won't have to deal with the family, like those terms, like interchangeable terms. I also learned in my Spanish class that I passed. So, I think like, it's like, important to learn these terms. Especially if you want to learn another language, because it's really good to know another language, especially if you're learning for a job that requires you to learn another language. So I thought
Okay,
I
I have one question to that though. Okay, so there's Latino, Latina, right? It's
yeah,
supposed to be for male and female. When you have a group of Latino people, do you say Latino or those Latinos or those Latinas? Like say they're a group of girls. Do you say those are Latinos or Latinas?
well, if it's a group of girls, you would say Latinas. If it's a group of men or
So like
boys, you would say Latinos.
so in actuality, the correct way would be Latinos. They are Latinos because it's a group. So when there's more than one, it always takes the masculine ending.
Yeah,
Now, a lot of
if
people,
it's both men and women, yeah, you're right there. It would take the masculine ending, but I don't know why. It's just I guess it's the rules of Spanish language. But
yeah.
yeah,
But a lot of people just casually say Latinas if it's just all girls, but it's not actually correct. It's supposed to be Latino still.
correct.
But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I don't mind saying Latinas. Again, it's a group of girls, so there's no point of that. But again, Latinx, back to the thing. I just have a grudge, man. I think it's just a progressive term created by like people who are smart and they just want to label
You want me to say? You
us
want me to
another
say? I
term.
said it before.
Yes, say it please, because I don't want to say it because then it's gonna sound crazy. What is it, Chris?
I mean, this is just a generalization slash joke. It's sort of a term that was like, created by white people.
Thank you.
I'm actually looking right now at like when was the first usage of the word, and it said the term was first seen online around 2004. It has later been used in social media by activists, students, and academics who seek to advocate for individuals living on the borderlines of gender identity.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that again, like this is another thing that I learned in college. Like one of the things that that has been introduced to me in college is like like the Latinx, like like introducing ourselves by our pronouns. Another thing that I have been like hasn't been like like I didn't do in high school, but that started doing that when I started doing college. Like we started doing, oh hi, my name's so and so. I use whatever pronouns. I mean, that's something I remember. I can think of the top of my head. Like, that's something that started like under I think when Obama was president. Like that's something that he started, and then it started like just going around, because I think that's the whole thing. Towards the end of Obama's presidency, that's when that there's like a kid in North Carolina. He like went to the woman's bathroom, but he was like a guy, but he identified as a female.
Okay,
It's
but do
very,
you know
yeah.
do you know the percent of people that actually use the term Latinx? I sent a bunch of like articles. I don't know if you scrimmed through them or not. Do you know?
I know because I read.
I,
Thank you, DeLuca.
I prepared.
Tell me.
I did my homework.
Tell me. What's the percent?
It was 3%, right?
Yes. And how many people have heard the term? 25% of Hispanics have heard the term.
wow.
So if you actually compare it, who knows more about Latinx? Like, let's just generalize it, because I know from my community, right? I am Hispanic, so I tend to just socialize with the majority being Hispanics, right? It's normal. Like if you're part of this culture, you're gonna hang out with majority, sometimes that culture, right? It's just how we are. In my community, we don't know what Latinx is. What about in your community, in your setting, in the white atmosphere?
I mean, at least in my neighborhood, I don't typically hear it, but and we have a pretty my neighborhood does have a pretty prominent Hispanic population. So
Okay.
I haven't really actually heard it around here. At least it's mostly something I've just heard on college, and like especially when they're like advertising events and stuff. It's like, oh, instead of like Latin Heritage Month, Latinx Heritage Month. That was like what the thing was at school. And Anthony and I go to the same college, so like he probably had.
Okay, perfect.
I've seen
So, like,
posters with Latinx on it. Look, I live in a town that like majority of town is white, but the town is very diverse. But I never heard the term Latinx used where I live.
so I read two articles from the Pew Research Center, right? DeLuca, you read the one with the 3%, but did you get to read the other one?
With the CNN one or what? Or
No,
the
no,
other?
no, not
The
the other Pew Research with the like identity crisis.
Yeah, Hispanic identity phase across generations as immigrant connections fall away.
Yeah, so what's happening in the United States is that these generations, right? So you come in as an immigrant, right? Then you have your second generation, your third generation, your fourth generation, and then it keeps going on, right? Culturally, at least within Hispanics in the research, you lose your cultural tie. So as you further on, right, your lineage furthers on, people tend not to align themselves with being Spanish, Latino, or Hispanic. They tend to say that they're mixed. They're not, the majority of their lineage isn't Hispanic at all, so they just say they're American. So I feel personally that people that do immigrate to this country in our second generation, as it's shown in the research, we still have a strong connection with our country, right? And we say we're Hispanic or Latino, we say from our nationality, right? We're from Peru, Ecuador, and all of that, but we don't use Latinx. And the people who do use Latinx, or where it's popular and it's rising, I feel like it's towards the later generations,
Yeah.
the third and the fourth,
Mhm.
those that are born from American-born parents that are from Spanish descent, but they still were in this country before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those terms start to lose their credibility in a sense, just because in those later generations, they're not as culturally attached as the second or even like the immigrants, right? Because it's proven in the research that they showed, like they don't participate in the same cultural traditions, the language as well. The second generation and the immigrants have a high rate of speaking Spanish or being Spanish dominant, while
Mhm.
the third and the fourth tend to lose it. I think around 20 or 30% are Spanish dominant, and then they just fourth or fifth and they just lose it completely, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like, in a sense, the people that are using Latinx are the ones that are considered, Hispanic because they have ancestry, but it's not necessarily like the full cultural capture of what our culture is. You know what I mean? They're more Americanized than they are Hispanic or Latino in a sense.
Mhm.
That's my opinion on it. It's more of a progressive term, but it's an American term. It's an American idea.
Mhm. I think that that's a great point that you made because that's why I think that this term will never be widely used because the majority of Hispanic Latinos do not live in America. And if this is a term for them and they're not here, I don't think it's gonna take off.
Bro.
If you came with this term, if you went to just Colombia, for example, and you said like Latinx or like you say that like, oh, I'm Latinx, and like I'm sure some people might know what you're saying, but I feel like the later generations, especially considering like how religious and conservative the adult generation is in Latin America, they would just be like, "What the heck is this? Like you're coming here changing our language and stuff now." So
It
I
seems like
think,
an invasion,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. I mean, personally, I don't really care if like someone decides to use that identification for themselves. If it makes you feel better, do it. I'm not here to impede on your progress. But um I think that you shouldn't force someone who is Latino, Latina that just says that they're that or they decide to use their country of origin instead. You shouldn't force them to do that. And how Anthony said, like mentioning the pronouns thing, um my view on that is just like if you have different pronouns than what you may appear to be, go ahead and tell us. I don't really care. Like, awesome, tell me. But I don't really want to tell you. I don't really care because I'm a man and
So
I
am I.
shouldn't need to add that little plug to show that. Like, if you need to tell us something, just let us know. But I understand like why like they want everyone to say the pronouns like, oh, it's like support for the other people. But like,
Does it really matter in the first place?
yeah, like
I mean, like
if
by
you're
looking at,
non-binary, if you're
I,
non-binary and you want to use the pronouns, go ahead. Tell me.
I was saying like by looking at us Christian, like can you tell that we're men? Like obviously the answer is yes,
Yeah.
but I mean like obviously I agree with you 100% on what you're saying, completely.
Hmm. It's if you like, yeah, if just for example, like Anthony, he looks like a man. All right, cool. But now we go into a meeting together and he says, "Hi, I'm Anthony. I use they them pronouns." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Rock on, man." Like it no biggie, no biggie. It's just like I'm not gonna say, "Hi, I'm Christian Luke. I use he him pronouns." Like, oh, it's like everyone's like, "Oh, but you could use it. It only takes like 2 seconds to do it." No, I don't need to. Because I think that that's where the especially in this country, the progressive movement kind of fails is that they try to impose certain things on people where like if you just said it, no one would really have an issue with it. Like, but don't tell people to be like, oh, like if you're in a meeting and they say, oh, what's your pronouns? Like after you finish it, like that's just kind of annoying. You know what I'm
Also,
saying?
that's very inappropriate to actually like, ask someone, "Oh, what's your pronouns?" I think I would be like, what the heck? Like, I would feel like like telling the person asking in private, like, I'll tell you in private, but I mean, I would probably be like too uncomfortable to answer that like in a public meeting, something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to the topic at hand. We got a little sidetracked there, but I think it all kind of connects somewhat.
It does.
Um, so now, Luis, for the people that are non-binary, what would they use to identify themselves in the Spanish language? Is there words for them, or are they
Yeah,
kind of?
and in all honesty, I don't even think that's an issue in Spanish culture. I mean, I don't think we're going through that in South America. Like, I don't think that whole I don't have a gender issue or there's a gender issue. It's just you're male or female, and you're either straight or you might be, gay in the sense, right? And there's nothing wrong about it. I think the only thing that's wrong is that since we're so culturally religious, if you're gay, I think it's seen as bad. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of bad things about Spanish culture. Like one is that people of darker skin are looked down looked down upon. You know, that's just, I don't know why, but it's gone to be like a norm. You know, you don't want to be dark, you want to be lighter in a sense.
Mm.
When you're gay, it's like, oh, God bless you, you know, there's something wrong with you. But like we don't go outside and do anything about it. We just like tend to just like look at you over the shoulder and be like, But we don't like push anything. I don't think there's any agenda of saying like, oh, you have to like do, this is your gender, or give me your gender. Like I want to know your gender, or this whole, you know, thing that this activist approach in America, that doesn't exist, honestly. I feel like in South America,
Mm-hmm. I
it's
think
more about corruption.
Yeah.
It's more about corruption than anything.
Anthony, what were you gonna say?
Obviously, I see that. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, though. Like, I love, I love I love, the LGBTQ community. Nothing, I have nothing against them. I mean, obviously, people want to, be, attracted to the same sex as themselves. Go for it. It's you do you. Obviously, it's their life. They can do whatever they please, as long as they're happy at the end of the day, as long as they feel they made the right decisions, and as long as you're happy at the end of the day, it's all that matters. But I think at the end of the day, again, all that matters at the end of the day. But I think obviously what we've seen, I think in the United States, is that the LGBTQ community has become very radicalized. And I think a lot of people, I think even the gay community has even pushed people who are straight, like me, to even be gay. I think that's the only thing I really have a problem with. When you push your own views, like being gay or being vegan to other people, that's when I have a problem. Again,
Mhm.
if you're happy, be happy with who you are, but don't push your own personal views on other people. Like
Just just as like a clarification there, the majority of the LGBTQ community don't really impose their will. It's more or less just like a very loud 10%, which is with anything too. It's the
yeah, I'm just talking about that 10%.
Yeah. So I think that we wrapped that up pretty well. Is there any final thoughts?
Yeah, just Latinx from memory. It's not something people use. Real Latino Hispanic people do not use that term. Just saying.
All right. So I think we're good with all that. Luis had an announcement to make to all of our viewers, so go right ahead.
Yes, I'm very sorry for those who like our videos and watch them, but you will no longer see my cute face. No, so on a real level, I was talking to Christian about this, and what I want to do, my career path, I want to be joining the Navy, but I want to commission. Now, when you commission, there's a lot of things that go into play. It's not as easy as being enlisted. There's like a whole package that you have to set up. There's a certain exam, certain GPA, certain recommendations of letters. There's the PT, and depending on what type of, I guess you can say rate, which is like the type of job you're gonna get in the military, you need certain qualifications, right? Certain physical standards. And as I was telling DeLuca, some of the jobs that I was looking is being a Navy SEAL. And I think we all know what a Navy SEAL is. It's basically Batman, We're all superheroes out there. You can just imagine what the physical requirements are. It's a swim, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and then a run. And then the other one would be a supply corps. Those are the two ones that I was looking at mainly, but you gotta have a pretty good GPA. And this semester is my last semester, and I'm actually right around the 3.5. So if everything goes good, I'm gonna end with a 3.5, and then whatever decimal else is there. So I just really gotta focus, and basically gonna just go off the grid and just focus on that, honestly. So I won't be able to focus too much on this. But I mean, I'll be watching it and giving it likes though. I'll literally just be spamming the likes.
We appreciate that. No, definitely. I think that that's an awesome. It's always refreshing in a way to hear someone that wants to serve our country. It's
I mean, Anthony has pride in the military, right, Anthony?
Of course, I love everyone who serves in the military. I know you'll serve the United States very well. I know I have the total and up to total respect for everyone who serves in the military. And when you become a Navy SEAL, you'll have my utmost respect. Even though I respect you now, so it's not like I respect you even more.
It's like, wow.
He's like it's gonna go from 100 to like 110 now.
Definitely. You can just imagine the training, bro. The training sessions are hard. I had to like honestly like just write it down. Even my girlfriend knows. I train a lot, right? You gotta say it loud. Say yes.
Oh yes.
There we go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just giving up a chunk of your life to the military is not an easy decision, but it's something that I could tell that you're very passionate about and you're willing to put the work into it. So, and all of us here, speaking for all of us at Everything in Moderation, including the other show with the other bozos, we support you 110%, and we have a great respect for what you're trying to do. And you always have a home here too. So if you ever want to pop in for an episode or whatever, when we film. So
No, definitely. No, yeah. And just an FYI for everybody in the military, you can retire after 20 years. So just saying, you can calculate in the military calculator, your pay, it's like the average of your last 3 years. It's a lot of money. Just saying. 20 years, it's a lot of money.
It's just turned into a Navy commercial.
Just saying. You can also get your master's pretty easily after 6 years. Just saying.
There are a lot of benefits. I remember I was like speaking to some of my friends about like who have a lot of student debt. If you go to the military after like college, they will pay like I think 33% of the debt like each year or something. So obviously, you're doing a very hard thing, but a very admirable thing. So you do deserve to be rewarded in the ways that they do. Probably even more. Probably deserve to be rewarded even more. But that's all.
Yeah.
My dad served, so I'm serving. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Continuing on the tradition, and then maybe your young ones will have.
They will. Trust me, they have to serve. It's part of the. I even told my girl, if we have a family, that my children are gonna serve.
All right, Lewis, we're gonna miss you, but we appreciate your support. Wish you the best of luck, and to all of our viewers, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend. See you, everybody.
Sayonara.
Yeah.